Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion, and the fit for this video is the Frank Miller Ben Grimm. Let's take a look at a video.
The word homosexuals did not appear in our English Bibles until the year 1946. The old translation was abusers of themselves with mankind. Seems kind of open-ended.
The word homosexual appearing in the 20th century when contrasted with previous translations isn't a really sound argument to invalidate the translation. It's like me using the word immoral didn't appear to the 20th century and previously it was fornicators. What it really boils down to is the translation accurate?
All right, let's see it.
And we've got to use the experts in the field in order to assess this. One of them is a leading New Testament Greek scholar, Dr. Bill Mounts. Dr. William Mounts is a PhD-educated Greek scholar, and he wrote the book on basics of biblical Greek. He wrote an article on the meaning of the word arsenokoitai, which has been translated to homosexual. He says, the association of arsene and koitai from Leviticus 20:13, or meta arsenos komemenos koitai gunai kian, one who has intercourse with a man as with a woman. The definition, Leviticus 20:13, which the word arsenokoitai is sourced from, is if a man lies with a male as with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. It doesn't really matter how we label it. What it boils down to is what is the activity being described? It's two people of the same sex engaging in sexual activity.
No, it absolutely is not. It's describing one man taking the insertive role in an act of male same-sex intercourse. That is an important distinction because there is a different word that is used in 1 Corinthians 6:9 to refer to the man who takes the receptive role. It's malaki in the plural, and this means something like soft ones, and it's a pejorative that could be used to refer to men who are effeminate or who are soft or who do a lot of things that are considered unmanly in the ancient world. And one of those things is taking the receptive role in an act of male same-sex intercourse. The word also makes no reference whatsoever to female same-sex intercourse. So to suggest that this word refers to both participants in any same-sex intercourse is flatly false. And that is an important distinction to maintain because it means rendering homosexual expands the group that is being referred to exponentially. Additionally, the word homosexual today overwhelmingly refers to people who identify as having a homosexual orientation, which does not necessarily mean that person has ever engaged in homosexual sex or sex of any kind. The text is absolutely not condemning people who just identify as having a homosexual orientation. The text is condemning specifically a man who takes the insertive role in an act of male same-sex intercourse. Now, people are going to say, well, what about Romans 1:26? Great. Yes, that does refer to female same-sex intercourse. That's a different text. That's using different words. When it comes down to what arsenokoitai means, we have to be precise. We also cannot presuppose univocality and presuppose that we can just bring any other ideologies or texts to bear on what this word means. If we're talking about what this word means, it does not mean homosexual, period.
This is the translation for the word arsenokoitai, which we, in our modern understanding, is homosexuality. And here's the best part. The Bible doesn't force you to change your sexual orientation. The Bible doesn't force you to do anything.
But whether or not a member of the LGBTQ+ community cares at all regarding what the Bible says, there are people in societies all around the world today who are leveraging these interpretations of the Bible to gin up prejudices and to facilitate legislation of all kinds that deny members of that community access to power and resources of all kinds, access to jobs, access to public services, access to medical care that result in them not being safe within their own families, that result in youth taking their own lives, that result in other people taking their lives. This is the far bigger problem with attempts to maintain this outdated, this ignorant, and this bigoted reading of the Bible.
What the Bible does teach is that a God of the universe has revealed himself in the Bible and has asked us to live a certain way.
The Bible does not do this. The Bible presents multiple different conceptualizations of God and God's agents, and multiple different ideas about the right way to live. And many of these ideas directly contradict other ideas. And so anyone who tries to assert a single perspective regarding how to live from the Bible has absolutely no option but to negotiate with the text, which means deciding which texts are going to be centered and given priority, and which texts are going to be reinterpreted, marginalized, or outright ignored. Anyone who asserts a single perspective from the Bible regarding the right way to live has absolutely no choice but to negotiate with the text. That's the only possible way to do this, which means that any single perspective regarding the right way to live from the Bible is going to be contingent upon one's own social circumstances, needs, exigencies, rhetorical goals, which means it's always going to be subjective and it's always going to be changing.
You don't have to live that way. One thing that we shouldn't do, though, is take definitions in the Bible and try and make them suit cultural norms.
So 2 things here. There are no definitions in the Bible. There are descriptions and there are prescriptions and there are proscriptions, and we derive our own definitions from them, but the definitions themselves are not in the Bible. They're negotiated. The other thing is that everyone alters what the Bible says to suit their cultural norms. Absolutely everyone. Not only because we can't interpret it without doing that, but because those who want it to be authoritative have to make it relevant to their time and their place and their rhetorical goals. So, for instance, most Christians around the world flatly ignore the direct and explicit command that Christians avoid eating blood. Most Christians around the world ignore Paul and even Jesus's advocacy for celibacy, for an asexual life. Most Christians ignore the fact that every last syllable of the Bible that has anything to say about slavery endorses or condones it. In fact, in the Hebrew Bible and in the New Testament, the ideal relationship with God is repeatedly represented as us being God's slaves. Most Christians flatly ignore the fact that polygamy is normative throughout the Hebrew Bible and is never addressed anywhere in the New Testament. All people who treat the Bible as an authoritative text have to negotiate with it, and it is precisely their cultural norms that govern that negotiation. Now, they want to assert that the Bible has an authority that transcends the social context, but it just doesn't. Every last syllable of the Bible is socially contingent. It was created by the social context. So attempts to try to leverage the Bible as some kind of inerrant, inspired, univocal, and authoritative dictation from God regarding how we're supposed to live are misguided from the get-go. What they actually are attempts by people representing groups today to leverage the Bible as a proof text to validate and to authorize their own attempts to structure power, values, and boundaries in ways that serve their own interests.
So ultimately, you have a choice. You can follow Jesus or not. No one's forcing you to do that. But one thing we shouldn't do is misrepresent the text.
In your blithe and your naive zeal to advance your identity politics, you have flatly misrepresented the text.